So why are we pushing so hard for a Jeffersonian-style democracy where, you're talking about people who think in terms of the 10th century? So I think we're trying to push a noodle up the hill with no even perception of a good outcome for us. I think we need to be focused on Pakistan and Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And in addition to the Cold War, Alex, what we need to be worried about is the fact that both the Taliban elements in Pakistan and Al-Qaeda have stated clearly, without any sort of clarification other than that they're intended to obtain and use nuclear weapons from the Pakistani arsenal against us. And if you look back on the 9/11 attacks, there were actually warnings available to us saying that they intended to do attacks on us, which have been widely talked about. So there's no reason to think that they won't do that now.
Well, Colonel, I mean, here's my issue. Clearly, Pakistani intelligence has ran, the major elements are organized, the different tribes with the U.S. In that 9-year war or 10-year war with the Soviets, and then General Hamid Gul, our media says, is this great hero back then. Now our media implies, that he's somehow this big leader, but he's come on this show to say, look, your drone attacks, all of this, it's just stirring people up. This is a destabilization operation.
I agree. I agree with my point.
So my issue is, I hear that there's all these Pakistani intelligence connections to the different Taliban groups, which of course are in their country. What do you expect? But I see more connections with our Pentagon, like Al-Awlaki, having dinner with the head of the army, than I do to Pakistani intelligence. So I mean, are you saying Pakistani intelligence is running attacks against our troops, or what elements? And what do you think of General Hamid Gul?
Well, let me answer that in two pieces. First, regarding the destabilization, I could not agree with Hamid Gul more. I think we have destabilized Pakistan by our actions. I agree with him 110%. The basic fact is this: we don't understand the culture well. I talk about that in my book. I recommend it to your listeners to pick up. And yeah, clearly we don't understand the culture, and by our fumbling around in that region, we have helped destabilize the Pakistanis. We put them in a position where they have to basically split themselves regarding their own self-interest, which has resulted in the chaos you now see. With that said, yeah, I do believe there's elements of the ISI who have encouraged the Taliban to maintain an insurgency in Afghanistan, which resulted in the death of U.S. troops. I'm not saying that Hamid Gul himself has been involved, but I think that there are elements are, and I've had friends of mine in the media who have been there embedded with the Taliban and gone across the border into Afghanistan.
But the Taliban is Afghanistan, so what you're basically saying is, just like India's trying to influence, Pakistan's trying to influence, the United States is trying to influence.
Right, yes. And with that said, then, I think the best thing we can do is pull ourselves out. And I do agree about the drone strikes as well. I've gone, as a matter of fact, it's been ironic. I've gone on several networks, to include one where I'm fundamentally a conservative thinker, and I had a liberal telling me that they thought the drone attacks was the best thing since sliced bread, which I just found fascinating coming out of a liberal. But with that said, no, I think the drone strikes are hugely destabilizing. And I've used this, I think, before, and you and I may have talked about this. How long would it last for us to be, lobbing missiles into the southwest border, where, we got a drug cartel and say, Nogales coming across the border, and yeah, we fire off one of these drones, fire off a missile and kill, 5 drug guys, and we take out 3 families from Minot, North Dakota. How long would that last here? It wouldn't last very long. So why do we have a different standard of attack in Pakistan, where fundamentally, if you don't have a clear shot and you take out what they call collateral damage, you've then created additional generations of terrorists, because obviously this region of the world understands the idea very well of vengeance. That's one of the driving forces.
Well, exactly. You talked about 10th century. Imagine, it's not just if we had drones attacking northern Mexico, but drones attacking areas, in Texas, i.e. Pakistan, and just that fundamental primitive level of, it's like Skynet has death birds in the air raining hellfire missiles, down on us. That is going to create people that are going to fight back because of vengeance, because of a debt to score, a blood debt, an eye for an eye, and then they're called terrorists, but I mean, bottom line, if somebody killed your family, what would you do? Maybe that's the policy. Order out of chaos. They want to go in and get Pakistan's nukes. They want to destabilize Pakistan. They want to have a radical Muslim uprising as a pretext to go into Pakistan, and that's what General Hamid Gul and others have said on this show they believe is the real endgame.
That's one of those things where you and I may disagree, but the fact is the fact, and what you're stating essentially are the facts as they're now kind of identifying. Yeah, the fact is that we have, and I believe one of the things my think tank has done is we actually, by just taking a step back and looking at the facts, do believe that by the U.S. inability, and again, you may attribute it to a deeper objective. I attribute it to basically incompetence and not understanding what the hell we're doing. The fact that we, by our very actions, have helped destabilize Pakistan and have resulted in the government being probably the least stable it's ever been since its inception in 1947, and it's not going to get any better by the fact that we continue to do the very bad acts to help destabilize.
And you've got this nationalistic, hundreds-year-old plus. I mean, Pakistan and India had, 2 wars last century alone, right. Big ones with each other, and they've got disputed areas in Kashmir. I mean, if I was India, I'd be wanting to bury the hatchet and work with Pakistan, but either side doesn't want that, and I mean, this could get... So what is your plan from the deep research you've done and being over there, in the culture deep, what is your plan to extricate ourselves from the region?
Well, first thing I would do if I were the president, I would declare victory and leave Afghanistan tomorrow. And I would just say, we've done our job. We've not had a terrorist attack mounted from Afghanistan since we invaded. It's time to leave. And with that, and I would not completely leave the country. I think we would probably leave about 20,000 troops, mostly special operations guys there to focus on just elements that we need to focus on to make sure that no other terrorist training camps are created, things like that. Basically trying to fundamentally make sure that things don't happen as they did in the late 80s, early 90s, where we basically left the country for anyone to go in there and do what they wanted, and then work with the Pakistanis and the Indians to negotiate a peace process. One of the things I found very hopeful, and again, you may disagree with me on this, but General Petraeus said 2 weeks ago that we need to establish a Northern Ireland peace process for the region.
And you've been saying that 6 months ago, so maybe they're listening to you.
Well, it's interesting. I hope maybe General Petraeus actually got one of the copies of the unredacted books before they shredded it at the Pentagon. But yes, he actually said that, and I think it's notable. And here's why: the Northern Ireland peace process, one which was very bloody, and this is one of the notable things. I'm not sure if your listeners fully understand. That was not a pleasant process. It took both sides at one point in time, essentially self-eliminating the most extreme elements of their ranks, and it was one of those things where it was breaking a pathology. What we have now is a pathology. We have generation after generation kind of doing the same thing, and we need to find a way to give them alternative things to do. And these folks are going to be tribal. They've been tribal for thousands of years. There's no reason to believe that they're going to behave differently and come to a 21st century understanding of society.
And it's a lot cheaper to not have trillion-dollar wars, but yes, to actually build some schools and roads, and I mean, just give cash payments to every person in Afghanistan. I've seen the breakdown. It'd be a lot cheaper to do that than to continue this.
Right, exactly. And then look, I got to say, abandon the Karzai government. If it survives on its own, wonderful. If not, then so be it.
Because we're claiming we're giving them democracy, but it's the opposite. Everybody knows he's been stealing these elections.
Right. And that makes us look hugely stupid, Alex, in the eyes of the world. Where is our standards here for actually knowingly supporting a dictator?
So they want to be able to self-determine. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, and I think that's the best course of action for us, to not determine for them what's best for them. I think that's arrogant and socially, going to get us in trouble by the fact we are then trying to nation build, not do what's necessary to support our own defense.
Well, really, isn't it just the liberal control freaks just love to control countries?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things, don't get me wrong, when I was there on the ground, and I talk about this in my book about the fact that when I was down in Kabul, what we would do, the little kids would come up and want to be our quote unquote bodyguards. And this was them kind of taking us around the shops, and they would get kickbacks from us and the shop owners. And I always made a point to pick a female bodyguard, which drove the elders crazy because, well, that's really a little boy's work, not a woman's work. With that said, the liberals have made a cause of this where they're saying, well, if we leave, the Afghan women will be victimized. As much as that is tragic, and I feel personally bad about it, it is not our job to determine every single society's what's good and what's bad for them. I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but, the idea of securing a country just simply because we have a social requirement to do so, we just don't have.
But that's a cover because the same, quote, liberals love robot drone attacks that blow up whole weddings.
Right, and that's right, and so we have imprecise use of force, which I think has caused more harm than good. So yeah, the bottom line, Alex, is we need to step away from what we're doing and step away from the Karzai government. Allow the tribes to exist and come together, or not come together as they want. And this is a problem we face now too. One of the reasons the Taliban has been so effective, and this is again self-evident, but not something that readily is discernible from just looking at the news. When we came in there in 02, 03 and began work, the Taliban were hated because of their rigid form of Sharia law. Well, break. We've got all this time goes by, and the very thing that's drawing them to the people of Afghanistan is this very, very rigid form of Sharia law because the central government cannot give them justice. One of the things the central government has completely failed to do is be fair. And as you pointed out, essentially it's become a dictatorship. It has no relevance to the Afghan people. So when faced with two alternatives, often they will choose the less bad one of the two. The Taliban, as far as I can tell, has not stopped this momentum. And don't forget, everybody's there that we're going to send there now. So it'll probably end with, instead of us driving across the Freedom Bridge, it'll be us, convoying out to Karachi and letting things go back to the chaos they were before, because there's just no way we're going to be able to stabilize and maintain the Karzai government unless we're there holding their hand. And I just don't see that happening. Next 2 years.
I want to shift gears and get back into the book after the break in our final segment. Book's Dark Heart, Operation Dark Heart. And we'll give you the website, folks, but it's in bookstores everywhere. It's a bestseller. Briefly, have you seen the Fox News piece and AP pieces where they go and talk to Marine Corps colonels on video, and that our military gives them fertilizer and helps them grow the opium? And I understand the argument, well, if we don't do this, then they'll hate us even more. But, I mean, production's off the charts, and our military controls most of those borders and the conduits to ship out. And you know how many times in Vietnam and right through the military's been caught, and contractors have been caught, and that's coming out in federal depositions dealing with XE, formerly Blackwater. That, the people running this system, they don't care because it's a black hole to pump money into. They get to launder the drug money. I mean, have you seen the news clips where Geraldo's up there and the Marine Corps colonel is admitting they're helping grow the opium? I'm
aware of those. And the thing is, when I was there in 03, I can cite for you specific experience I've had on this. We knew in 03 that the drug groups were essentially starting to resurge and put things together. And we purposely at that time, Alex, turned a blind eye to it. And the policy thinking was, if we don't allow them to do this, they'll have no income. And the ultimate result has been, obviously, for other elements of the Afghan government and the Taliban to benefit from this illicit drug trade. So, there's really no new policy or no real effort to stem the tide of the drugs for any number of reasons. And I think it's one of those situations that no one in the government is going to admit to the fact that if you look at what's going on, the facts don't meet with the policy. The policy is obviously we're trying to stop it, but the reality is, I think we've done far more to give it lip service than actually take any action one way or another to actually try to stop it.
Well, wait, giving them fertilizer and helping guard it, I mean, that's not just taking no action. I mean, the production's off the charts.
And again, you got to ask yourself, what are we trying to do there if we're allowing this to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hidden in plain view. $500 billion opium, 92% of world production. It was down to like 10%, with the hardcore nutty Taliban over there before. But we had to go into Afghanistan because the terrorists were over there. Now the opium production's off the charts. You don't think the CIA or the contractors would be doing something with that drug money?
Point.
So my issue is, I hear that there's all these Pakistani intelligence connections to the different Taliban groups, which of course are in their country. What do you expect? But I see more connections with our Pentagon, like Al-Awlaki, having dinner with the head of the army, than I do to Pakistani intelligence. So I mean, are you saying Pakistani intelligence?
Alex, what we need to be worried about is the fact that both the Taliban elements in Pakistan and Al-Qaeda have stated clearly, without any sort of clarification other than that they're intended to obtain and use nuclear weapons from the Pakistani arsenal against us. And if you look back on the 9/11 attacks, there were actually warnings available to us saying that they intended to do attacks on us, which have been widely talked about. So there's no reason to think that they won't do that now.
Well, Colonel, I mean, here's my issue. Clearly, Pakistani intelligence has ran, the major elements are organized, the different tribes with the U.S. In that 9-year war or 10-year war with the Soviets, and then General Hamid Gul, our media says, is this great hero back then. Now our media implies, that he's somehow this big leader, but he's come on this show to say, look, your drone attacks, all of this, it's just stirring people up. This is a destabilization operation.
I agree. I agree with my. So why are we pushing so hard for a Jeffersonian-style democracy where, you're talking about people who think in terms of the 10th century? So I think we're trying to push a noodle up the hill with no even perception of a good outcome for us. I think we need to be focused on Pakistan and Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And in addition to the Cold War,